Yo, what's up, guys? Finally, we can breathe a sigh of relief because, man, oh man, that was a close call today between Milan and Pisa. But Milan find a way, guys, to squeak out the win and defeat them 2-1. Now, that was obviously a nail-biting performance today by Milan, and it obviously did not have to be a nail-biting performance today, Milan, I felt today, played very well in this game, dominating possession, having chances on net, having a couple goals, obviously, one goal disallowed, obviously missing a golden opportunity as well in the second half with a penalty shot, but Milan find a way to squeak out the win, guys, with a massive 85th minute winner by Luka Modric today, guys, but, this game here, was just another prototypical Milan game, from this season, of course, Milan just buying their time, playing tight defensively, not really breaking down, the smaller clubs. Obviously we know Milan have had a lot of issues this year defeating the smaller clubs, breaking them down at times, and obviously Milan had difficulty the first 39 minutes of the game. Of course, obviously Pisa had a great opportunity in the first half. Mike Maignan comes up with a massive save to bail on Milan. Of course, it could have easily been 1-0 Pisa. I'm not sure if the player was offside or not, but glad Maignan made the save. That's why Milan renewed him for the money that they gave him, so it was obviously a massive save by Milan there for Maignan. And Milan obviously were able to get their opportunity in the 40th minute with Zachary Athakami getting another start today for Alexis Salamakers. And this kid here is putting in some lethal balls the last couple games. Last game against Bologna puts in the cross in to lead to the first goal where Ruben Loftus-Cheek scores. And then obviously again today, he connects with Cheek again with a fantastic ball from the right side with a great pass by Modric to him. And then he puts in the beautiful looping cross in for Cheek to head it in, bottom left corner. It's a fantastic goal, fantastic link-up play. And, Milan were not doing very much leading up to that goal. Okay, we had a free kick opportunity with Milan there with Modric crossing it in. Rabiot had one other opportunity that went over the net. But other than that, it was pretty quiet for Milan in the final third for against Pisa there. So Milan didn't have much opportunities there. They were just buying their time, it seems, and they were able to bury their chance there with that great cross by Athakami there, guys, to Cheek. And Milan take the 1-0 lead into the halftime. Then we saw Allegri make one halftime sub, brings in Nicholas Füllkrug in for Christopher Nkunku, of course, and it almost worked right off the bat. Füllkrug makes a great play to pass it to Rabiot. Rabiot takes another fantastic strike. Great technique by Rabiot to score the goal, and I thought it was 2-0 Milan, but then after the ref calls for a handball on Füllkrug, that the ball grazes his forearm, and I'm thinking to myself, man, oh man, that would have been a fantastic second goal. It would have been just the same thing like against Bologna, scoring a couple minutes into the second half by Rabiot. And unfortunately, Milan's not able to make it 2-0. But then as we saw not too long after, Pavlovic makes a run into the box, does a great job drawing the foul. Loyola trips him up. Milan get the penalty, but I do not understand why Nicholas Füllkrug is the one stepping up to take the penalty. If you guys ask me, I think Luka Modric should have been the one to step up, or even Adrian Rabiot. For me, I would have not given it to Füllkrug. This was just not the time to give it to him. If we were up 2-0 already, sure. So, unfortunately, taking out Nkunku bites Milan in the ass. Füllkrug takes the penalty shot there. And unfortunately, it's a really bad penalty. Misses the net completely. Grazes the outside of the post. And it stays 1-0 Milan. But unfortunately, Milan, as I know how this team operates against smaller clubs, when you don't bury these smaller teams, they are going to come back to haunt you. And unfortunately, as we saw, Füllkrug's missed penalty came back to haunt them, of course. Now, obviously, Nkunku didn't do much in the first half, guys. I understand maybe why Allegri took him out. His substitution almost looked like a genius move with the goal that was disallowed. But unfortunately, Nkunku coming out of the game, he probably would have taken the penalty. Instead, Füllkrug takes it. He misses. And then as we saw, Pisa comes back in on a counter. Great looping ball in by Pisa. Fick and Gabbia do a horrible job playing it. I think Pavlovic didn't do a good job, defending it there. Deflects off the back of his leg. And then as we saw, Loyola wide open in front. Maignan just has to guess. Guesses wrong. Loyola beats him. Pisa ties it up 1-1. And I just said to myself, it's just once again, small club syndrome almost bites this team. And I said to myself, are they really about to drop both games to Pisa. It would have been a major frustrating result today if Milan had dropped the points. But luckily enough, the 40-year-old, the Ballon d'Or winner, one of the best signings, if not the best signing in the summer in Serie, Luka Modric, comes up massive. Not a lot of players would have this instinct to go and attack the box like he did. Ricci's in the box there. He's on the ground. Modric is able to attack the open space. He's able to chip it in the top right corner there and gives Milan the 2-1 lead. Just a massive break for Nick Füllkrug, for Milan to get that goal there by Modric. We obviously saw Pulisic come into the game. We saw Leao come into the game. Obviously, Milan still continued to dictate play after Pisa had tied it up. I thought Milan did a really good job, not letting that goal fluster them. Milan continued to push, continued to attack. Obviously, Allegri brought in the best players on the team, of course, in Pulisic and Leao, like I mentioned there. Of course, Füllkrug came out of the game after to assure the win, of course, but man, oh man, as soon as he brought in those guys, Milan pushed more. Ricci came in after for Fofana. Of course, Chi came out of the game. And as we saw, Modric bails out Milan with that great instinct run there to get the goal there in the 85th minute to give Milan the 2-1 lead. And obviously, it was a nail-biter at the end there. Milan, had to defend the last 5 to 6 minutes, last 7 to 8 actually. Pisa was attacking, of course, but Milan did a really good job defensively, staying compact, not letting Pisa get into the box there. Rabiot, unfortunately, committed a foul right outside the box there. Luckily enough, gets a yellow card. Clearly said something to the ref. Gets a red card. Will miss Pisa anyway, guys. Was his 5th yellow card. Unfortunately, not to have Rabiot against Como. That's a real unfortunate thing, to lose him against Como, guys, there. Rabiot's obviously been one of our most important players this season. Como's going to be a difficult game without him, because Como's obviously going to have a little bit of revenge on their mind after what we did to them on their home ground not that long ago. But Milan did a good job holding on to the lead there. It brings in De Winter, of course, for Füllkrug. Like I mentioned there, Milan was able to secure the 3 points. It's a massive win for us, guys. Milan stays 5 points behind Inter. Inter's got to play Juve tomorrow. Roma's got Napoli on the weekend. So those are 2 big games, Good for Milan as well to gain 2 more points on Juve for 4th place. Of course, Milan are 7 points clear now of Juventus. Milan have 53. Juve's got 46. So that's great to see as well. Securing more of that 2nd place top 4 finish for next year, of course, guys. But listen, we got some great performances today. I thought Modric played well. I thought Luka Modric played really well today in this game. I thought he was one of the best players. I thought Bertasaghi played well in this game today. Rabiot was very good at times in this game today. Now, Nkunku didn't do much, so I understand why he came out. Füllkrug obviously almost bit this team, with that missed penalty. I'm guaranteeing that he will not be taking the next penalty for Milan. Great to see Pulisic and Leao come into the game. Of course, Athakami had another great assist, so this is great to see him getting more minutes and more playing time, of course, obviously due to the injury to Salamakers. And Allegri's got to give the kid more time to just get him more acclimatized to the league, get more comfortable with playing in Serie. And, the kid's showing out, and he's playing some good minutes. Of course, he came out of the game, but, I thought he played well. So give Athakami some points or give him some credit. I thought Gabi and Fick didn't have the greatest of games. Wasn't their best performance. Same with Pavlovic. Wasn't their best game. Pavlovic was the best out of 3 because I felt he did a really good job making that darting run, drawing the penalty there. So I thought he was the best out of 3, but obviously wasn't the greatest performance by Milan's defense today. Of course, giving up that goal to Pisa. I thought Magnan was solid today, made that massive save in the first half. Did a very good job commanding the defense there. And obviously, Pisa didn't really threaten that much, but Magnan did a good job securing the win for Milan in the first half there with that save. And then after, guys, as I said, just Milan got to continue to stay behind Inter. Obviously, maybe Inter might slip up. Milan's got some opponents that they can win. Obviously, Milan have had difficulties this year against small clubs, like I mentioned, but continue to get these points. You're playing clubs like Como next, Genoa. You have to beat these teams, and then you play Inter in about 3 to 4 weeks' time. If you can win all your games until the next derby, who knows what happens, guys. We saw Rafa come into the game as well, like I mentioned. Didn't look like he was still 100% off. Milan's been off for 20 days, so who knows what's the issue with Leao, but still, I thought he did an okay job. Wasn't amazing, of course. Rabiot was great today, like I mentioned. Could have had that great goal, unfortunately, guys, but it was called back, like I said. But this is what Milan does, guys. They're going to play gritty games, play tight defensively, hit on the counters, score on set pieces, score on crosses, and this is what they did today. They did a really good job against Bologna, did a very good job today against Pisa, securing the win. It was too close for comfort. It was a little bit too close at times, you know what I mean? But Milan did a good job today, securing the 3 points today, guys. Fofana as well today, driving me nuts a few times in the first half today, getting dispossessed a few times, didn't look good in this game today. I didn't like his game today. I prefer Samuel Ricci starting over Fofana. I think he's just more intelligent with the ball at his feet, guys. But we'll see what Allegri does against Como. Thank God Milan get these 3 points today, not dropping more points against smaller clubs. Pisa obviously fired Gilardino not that long ago. They signed a bunch of new players, so it would have been a really, really bad result today if Milan had tied. But luckily enough, they don't drop the 3 points today. Como's up next. We'll see what Allegri's got planned without Rabiot. Of course, guys, that's going to be a little bit difficult. He's been one of the best players from Milan this season, not one of the best players in Serie in general. Como's going to be a very difficult game. They know they love to possess the ball. Fabregas is a really good up-and-coming manager, forward-thinking guy, loves to attack. Milan obviously are going to sit back again, possibly in that game. We'll have to wait and see what Allegri's game plan is in that game. We'll see if maybe Leao or Pulisic starts in that game. Now, we saw Pulisic get 15 minutes, Leao get 15 minutes as well. Hopefully these guys here are starting to get healthy, of course, for the final stretch of the season, because Milan's going to absolutely need them, especially for the derby, like I mentioned, coming up in 3 to 4 weeks' time, guys. But, great performance today, finding a way to win. Obviously, it was tough at times in this game, but Milan were able to suffer and find a way to win this game. Modric, stand-up performance. If you ask me, he was probably man of the match today. Luka Modric was, guys. Really good win today for Milan. Obviously frustrating at times. Obviously, there were some frustrating performances by certain players, but the main thing is we got the 3 points. We move on to the next game against Como, guys, and we'll see what happens with Juve and Inter and Roma Napoli this weekend. But we'll love to hear your thoughts and opinions on this game today, guys. So click like if you like this video. Subscribe if you guys want to see more content. Forza Milan sempre, as always, guys. We'll see you guys on the next episode of Rack One Filter. Ciao, guys.